Major breaking news. Donald Trump's administration has won another huge case in favor of shutting down the border to illegal aliens in the state of New Jersey. This is a big deal. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit, in a 2-1 decision, has just ruled for the Trump administration in a huge case that is going to make the liberals in New Jersey and the deep state very unhappy and make Second Amendment supporters and Americans of all stripes happy to close the borders and kick out the illegal aliens, which is mission critical to protect our country and our heritage. Let's break it down. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the Four Box of Dine, a proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, and I'm proud to say the top voice of the Second Amendment in America. Thank you, 2025 Gundies Awards. All right, folks, a huge decision by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit out of Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New Jersey. A 2-1 decision written by Judge Bebas, an important judge who may be a future Supreme Court justice, we'll have to see, in a case called CoreCivic versus the state of New Jersey. This is a very interesting case that pits the state of New Jersey's liberal policies that try to protect illegal aliens and people in the country over the interest of actual American citizens. No shock there, given how New Jersey fails to respect, for example, fundamental rights such as the right to keep and bear arms. Specifically, in this case, the state of New Jersey passed a statute, a law, that said that no private party in the state can enter into any contract to basically enforce immigration laws or otherwise basically imprison illegal aliens or anything along the lines. The consequence of this, of course, is that the federal government, if New Jersey were able to enforce this law, the federal government would not be able to come in and enter into contracts with private parties, such as the plaintiff in this case, CoreCivic, which apparently runs privately run and privately managed and privately built immigration and detention centers. The main customer, if not the only customer, I would suspect the only customer for CoreCivic's creation of and management of these immigration centers is, of course, the federal government, who is responsible for enforcing federal immigration law. But the state of New Jersey does not want private immigration detention centers or any immigration detention centers for that matter, as best I could tell. And they certainly don't want the federal government entering into contracts with New Jersey people or anyone in New Jersey to create or run such facilities. So what happened here is that CoreCivic had run these facilities apparently for many years. And when their contract with the federal government came up and expired, under this law, if this New Jersey state law were to be enforced, it would prevent the private party CoreCivic from entering into a contract in the state of New Jersey to run, build, and or operate a private immigration facility, immigration and customs lockup, prison, whatever you want to call it, detention center, on behalf of the federal government. So CoreCivic sued the state of New Jersey, and the federal government, the United States government, came in and filed an amicus brief and a statement of interest, came in supporting the plaintiff in this case, arguing that New Jersey's law violated the Constitution because the U.S. Constitution has something called the supremacy clause. And you know what the supremacy clause says? It says to the extent that a federal law conflicts with a state law, then the federal law is supreme and shall be ruled in favor of over the state law. In other words, if there's a conflict, the federal law trumps the state law. And that gives rise to various doctrines I won't bore you with the details of, but one such doctrine essentially under the supremacy clause says that if a state law interferes with the performance of the federal government's primary function, such as enforcing immigration laws, then that state regulation, that state law, violates the supremacy clause of the United States Constitution, and thus that state law is unconstitutional because of the supremacy clause of the U.S. Constitution. So today, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit has just ruled that the New Jersey law is indeed unconstitutional, because by preventing the federal government from entering into contracts with private parties and by preventing private parties from being able to enter into a contract with the federal government to create these immigration facilities, these detention facilities, they are unduly interfering with the performance of the federal government's function to enforce federal immigration laws. And therefore, the New Jersey law is unconstitutional and may not be enforced. Here's what the court had to say in summing up why it ruled for the Trump administration and the plaintiff CoreCivic, which is the counterparty to many contracts, according to this case, with the federal government to enforce immigration laws and to detain illegal immigrants, as requested by the federal government. At bottom, this law is an effort to hamstring the federal government's immigration power, making it hard as possible for it to hold aliens in New Jersey. That is a big step down a slippery slope. If we accepted New Jersey's logic in this case, consider what else states might be able to do. As New Jersey conceded at oral argument, under its logic, all 50 states could pass laws banning federal contractors from building weapons for the federal military. Such bans would cripple national defense. Powerful language from the Third Circuit there, but the court went on, pointing out that New Jersey's law simply cannot possibly fly in light of the federal Constitution's supremacy clause. Here's what they said next. The national government is and must be controlled by the people without collateral interference by the states. Because New Jersey knew that it could not openly bar the federal government from contracting to detain immigrants, it instead eliminated everyone with whom the federal government might contract within its borders. It asks us not to notice the federal elephant in the room. Yet we can see the law for what it really is, claiming the authority to dictate the manner in which the federal immigration function is carried out. Letting states do that would change totally the character of our federal system by transferring the supremacy, in fact, to the states. But the Constitution is supreme, and New Jersey's law directly regulates the federal government, so it is unconstitutional as applied to the CoreCivic. Of course, this is a huge win for the Trump administration because the Trump administration understands, as does the Four Boxes Diner, that to protect all of our fundamental rights and our country and our heritage and tradition, it is mission critical that illegal aliens that broke into this country and are here illegally be kicked out of this country. Period, full stop. And yes, indeed, do not kid yourself. The Democratic Party that wants to disarm you and take away all your rights, including censors you, they want to censor you to the point where you can't talk about the Second Amendment, and they want to take away your rights and disarm you so you're no longer a citizen, but you become a subject or a serf. Do not kid yourself. Bringing in third world illegal aliens from countries that have zero tradition and zero respect for, among other freedoms, the private right to keep and bear arms, along with the private understanding and private culture of self-defense, is ultimately going to be our doom when it comes to that right. If you look at these third world countries from which these people have been imported, or they've broken into the country and invaded us, whatever you want to call it, the reality is the only people in most of these countries that have firearms are either the corrupt government officials or the criminal gangs or cartels. So when these individuals come to the United States, they're going to vote against the Second Amendment. They're going to vote for gun control because from their experience, from their lived experience, from their traditions, from their heritages, from where they come from. Remember, these people are not assimilating. They're flying the flags of the countries from which they supposedly left, that supposedly fled. And they're sending remittances back. And they're talking on the phone and the Zoom calls back to their home country. They're not assimilating. This is no melting pot going on here. There is no doubt that if you give them and their families and their offspring, if you will, the right to vote, they're going to vote against fundamental American liberties. We see this with countless elected politicians who are basically right off the boat, including the Marxist, communist, potential future Mayor Mandami there, who may be the future mayor of New York City, who's already said we should ban guns. So, no, we want these illegal aliens. We want these people kicked out of the country yesterday. So with that said, the fact that the Trump administration won this major case in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit and trumped this New Jersey law that was trying to interfere with immigration enforcement. And keep in mind what was going on here, just so you understand the reality on the ground, that the facility that New Jersey was trying to shut down is very close to JFK and Newark airports. And that was where the federal government was using to kind of transport people and get them out of the country and move them around as part of the mission to deport these people. The state of New Jersey wanted none of this to occur in their state, forcing if this law were to be enforced, the federal government to move all those illegal aliens in that Newark, JFK, Queens area, of the New York City, basically the New York City, New Jersey area, the borderland there, forcing the federal government to have to transport all these people by bus all the way into somewhere in central Pennsylvania, making it much harder to delay, much harder to kick out the illegals, which, of course, is what Donald Trump is trying to do and his administration with Tom Homan and Kristi Noem is trying to do. But I'm happy to report that Trump won again in another major federal court, another precedent against the deep state and those that are voting for and cheering against American tradition, American culture, and our national interest. And here is basically a great summary of the case by the Third Circuit in ruling in favor of CoreCivic and the federal government over the lefties in New Jersey. Though New Jersey does not want private immigration detention centers, the government often relies on them. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, does not build its own lockups, and it does not operate them alone. Instead, it contracts with private companies or local governments to help them run it. This approach gives ICE the flexibility it needs to increase or decrease capacity as the number of deportable aliens fluctuates. The court goes on to say that exercising this discretion, the federal government has come to rely on the Plaintiff CoreCivic's detention center as a mission-critical location for federal government and ICE operations nationwide. The center is the only one available in New Jersey capable of meeting ICE's requirements, and its proximity to JFK and Newark airports makes it crucial to effectuating removing from the field offices nationwide. Without it, the government would have to take detainees to a center in the middle of Pennsylvania more than 250 miles and a 4-hour drive away. So there you have it, folks. Another use of the United States Constitution to protect our national interest over these rogue states that simply don't like America, in my opinion, and want to undercut America at every step. But I'm happy to report the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit, in a 2-1 decision, came out in favor of enforcing federal immigration law against the state of New Jersey. And I have a feeling the state of New Jersey is going to have a lot more losses coming up as they start facing down some of these Second Amendment issues. But, the history of the future has yet to be written. So there you have it, folks. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure you follow me on X at 4Boxes Diner. Don't forget to subscribe both to YouTube and to Rumble. And I look forward to talking to all again real soon here at the 4Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.